communicate with ourselves in a way. So true freedom, and this is what I've noticed in my work, is true freedom tends to cause people great angst and great anxiety. So when, in a shamanic experience for one, when you have a feeling of complete loss, an ego collapse, or a loss of identity, or in some sense, a loss of all the vices and all of the things that once gave you a feeling of self, a feeling of identity in some way, it's a great feeling of anxiety. It's almost like an anxiety attack. You feel as if you're dying in some way.
Ben, I had that happen to me on Salvia Divinorum.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was going to lose it. I was freaking out. And, because I felt myself, my person, the thing that I thought was me, starting to slip from my reality. And I panicked, just as you're saying. And it was a very frightening thing but then I sat and I questioned. I wondered, well, all right, if this thing that I think is me did suddenly vanish as it felt like it was going to, what was left? What was the body running around, still living?
Right, absolutely. And that's honestly, I've traveled down to South America several times, and I've taken part in several ayahuasca ceremonies, and I can say personally, trying not to get too much into my personal experience, but I can say that what I have noticed, at least from other people's experiences, my own experiences, and just not even through a method of authentic shamanism, but even in a sense of everyday life, in any scenario in our lives where we feel things aren't going the way that we think they should, if we have a standard or an expectation, such as a specific grade in school, or a way that a significant other should treat us, or the way that our family should be taking care of us monetarily, or it doesn't matter what it is, when things don't meet our standard, we feel a loss of control. We feel that we don't have control over that situation. And then what happens is what should be happening at that point is we should start realizing what we truly do have control over and what we don't have control over. But the sick and the twisted form of what this false ego really does employ in the body is it will switch one vice and it will replace it with another. And what that vice tends to do is, say, you'll leave one form of bondage and hop right into another prison. And the hidden, the more esoteric way of looking at that is the fact that we don't realize it because we don't want true freedom. I mean, we can say it all we want. We want to be free, we want to be independent. But if we don't mean it deep down inside, then on a topical level, on the ego level, on the persona level, what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, we've come wise to the fact that this is something that we don't want, so something else, some other form of vice, some other form of bondage, something that we can identify ourselves with as an authority figure, we need to come up with something a bit more esoteric. So everything that we typically do, if we're not truly focusing on the fact that of what true freedom is, we'll keep hopping from one form of slavery to another. And that's when you see people will lose their faith in a specific religion and find comfort in another, or find it in science, or find it in a New Age religion, or lose faith in the Republican side and switch to the Democratic side or the Libertarian side, or just choose to opt out and not even be a part of the political spectrum. And you see it all the time, but typically what people are doing is they're replacing, like I said, replacing one form of bondage with another. And as I was saying with the shamanic experience, that really just cuts it down to the core, because it's not even intellectual in a sense. You can't even really understand what it is that you're feeling at that moment, but you are losing the control and the identity that you thought you once had. And like you said, what is left after that?
Well, and we're going to get right into that. We're coming up on a break, so that's a good spot to stop, because, we're going to get to the self and the ego and start to understand. So coming up on the other side, we're going to look into submitting your application for registration. Are you owned? Are you owned by your birth certificate, by the Federal Reserve, and by Admiralty law? That's coming up on the other side of the break. This is the Free Zone with my great guest, Ben Stewart. So wordplay is a master art of our leaders, of those that have created our civilization around us, the rules that we tend to live by, the ones that we believe we have to exist with. And wordplay is something that is very critical to understanding life around us. The ideas that are created from words, from the concepts that come from words, and you can see that the Freemasons are masters of this, in that Noah Webster's creation of the dictionary. Fine Freemason Noah Webster, and he decides what words are okay and which ones aren't, and this whole practice of dictionaries then limits the concepts that people can use. But there is a whole nother word play that goes on, and that is the legal word play, or the language of law, which is just totally foreign, even though it seems to be the same language we're speaking. It isn't. And when you start to submit your application for registration so that you can get certification, which I'd like to mention that, that for the constitution of corporations, all of these words are French, curious enough. So, Ben, this idea of admiralty law and the idea of the concepts of these rules that we think we're under, we think we bound by, and are presented to us that our family just goes along with, and everyone gets a birth certificate, everyone registers themselves into this system. Is this the true law of the land?
Well, absolutely it's not. And I really put, especially within the last year, I put a lot of time into studying the difference between law and the legal system. And what I've noticed is, there are several different types of law, but really the main ones that I get into is civil law, the law of the land, and then there's this thing called maritime admiralty law, which I get into a lot more, and I try to at least expose the fact that it is corporate law. It is law that's based on commerce. It has nothing to do with human beings, individuals at all. It has to do with corporations, subcorporations, subsidiaries. That's really all it has to do with. It all has to do with pieces of paper with just signatures on it, and that's really it. And
I always see these things. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I always see those things as a form of magic. That's exactly what you would define as magic, is to write out this, treatise, this grimoire, put your magic signature on it, and all of a sudden it's real. There's nothing real about a corporation. There's nothing real about most of the system that guides our world today. But sorry, go on.
Well, no, that's absolutely true. And the idea of word magic is a perfect way to put it, because it really is. It's using the English language, and this is the most deceptive thing I've been able to really exploit, because it's in everybody's face. Not everybody is involved in the occult. Not everybody's interested in top political matters, things along those lines. But everybody has a run-in with the law at some point, whether it's a traffic ticket or something a little bit more serious. Everybody is right in their face, and it's really easy to explain just to the average person that, listen, do you understand that when a cop says, do you understand, they're asking, do you stand under admiralty law? They're not asking, it's not an English way of saying it. It's a legalese way of saying it. It's a way of pretty much saying a word that is understood in English, but to them, in their society, in the law society, they are at least claiming that they are under the understanding that